Good morning, teachers. Today, with my classmate Natasha Rodriguez, are going to present our analysis on the case English teaching in a subsidized school, having the next objective in mind. Analyze the reality delivered in the case, developing the role of the teacher and student, analyzing the educational context of the case and the teacher's beliefs that affect his way of teaching.
So, what the case is about? The present case shows us the reality of a municipal school in the Bio region, which is composed of students who are part of vulnerable and low-income families. The first problem is developed because the main goal of the students who finish fourth grade is to work. This gives the school the idea to create different plans to promote the importance of continuing to study with the possibility of opting for technical studies.
Due to the municipal school context, the courses have a large number of students and the number of teachers is not so high. There is only one English teacher for all educational levels. In the case, there is an English teacher called Mr. Zapata who teaches basic topics and vocabulary, since from his point of view, the students have no motivation or interest in his class. Most students do not like to write or simply do not understand what the teacher is saying.
On the other hand, the teacher does not give enough importance to the social cultural development of English because from his point of view, that is not a topic of interest for the students either. So students do not pass the oral test and do not actively participate in classes, despite occupying the necessary methods to teach the language, such as listening comprehension or paragraph writing. Students simply do not understand.
Referring to the educational context of the institution, the teaching learning process of the students is being limited by the social cultural environment in which they live in. We have to mention that in the educational context, it is not only confirmed by its students and teachers, but also by the families of each student, as well as by secretaries, school directors, organizers, and assistants.
Students and their families have huge needs, and that is why they receive help from the government. This makes us think that the social context of most of them is merely work as a support to achieve a stable life. Therefore, we cannot blame the fact that the students want to end their studies and immediately start to work because the only thing they have ever seen in their life is how their own parents work in order to have a better quality of life. For the same reason, the parents themselves are the ones that encourage young people to finish their studies as soon as possible and then start working.
We also have to mention that the possibilities that students have to continue studying after high school are very low due to ignorance on the topic, low family incomes. They see work as the most effective way to face society. They do not have motivation to keep studying. And then we have the student's profile, which is very worrying because teachers are the ones that have to encourage and motivate students to keep moving forward and progressing. However, in this particular case, the teacher of English, Mr. Zapata, mentioned that students do not feel motivated about anything and that will never learn English. Nonetheless, the main motivator of these students are their teachers, since the motivation in their homes is almost absent.
Nevertheless, the English teacher seems to be a teacher who doesn't trust in the abilities of his students, and he prefers to take the easiest side of the situation. We could say that students do not feel motivated in the English classes because there is not a teacher to motivate them to study. In this case, the English classes are based on teaching simple vocabulary and simple grammatical structures has a consequence of the lack of motivation, but this has to be the other way around. So students do not consider the activities as a challenge, and in consequence, these do not arouse their interest for learning.
Here we have teacher's role and its methodological strategies. Teacher role inside a classroom is fundamental. He or she is the one that has to propose clear goals, guide students, help them to learn, as well as support their decisions, and also be a pillar on each for each of them in terms of personal things. As an example and our personal experiences, a teacher means a lot to students when they are people we can trust on and tell them about our problems, since many students do not have this comfort in their families and friends.
So do not forget, of course, that teachers must be experts in transmitting information and knowledge to their students. For this reason, the strategies and methods they use have to be the center of the teaching and learning process.
And here we have our first quote, according to Dr. Nicole Brown, a lecturer in education at the UCL Institute of Education. If many children in your class are from multicultural backgrounds and learn English as an additional language, your teaching methods needs to be different to the class that has a high number of gifted and talented pupils. In this respect, the educational context really matters.
Okay, in the case we are analyzing, the English teachers simply use a basic methodological strategy for teaching a specific topic. It is important that this teacher is also guided by what is established within the national curriculum and, of course, that he or she adapts to the needs and abilities of his or her students. This is why if the teacher points out that the students do not like to read or write, perhaps it is necessary for the students to develop that skill.
For this, the teacher is in charge of transmitting the necessary knowledge that students need in order to improve their reading and writing. We have to add that students should feel the motivation from the teacher so they can feel the same desire for learning.
Mr. Zapata, the teacher in this case, translates everything he said into Spanish, and this can be a very useful technique considering the level of English of their students because he's not allowed to give instructions in English and if he doesn't translate, the final result of each activity or evaluation will be insufficient.
And here we have some proposals based on personal experiences in order to teach effectively. First of all, use of songs to develop listening skills. Then use of crosswords, puzzles, and flashy images that arouse the interest of students. And formative evaluations, which are not evaluated, with the final goal of feedback on each student's performance.
Nowadays, it is true that students need to hear positive comments, so it is important to let every student know that they are doing a good performance, even if it may not be the best, with the purpose of improve the performance, confidence, and skills of each student. Positive feedback should be considered, for example, great job, but maybe you should improve this or that, or very well done, but we suggest you, or that was a great presentation, but for the next time, or you made it happen, but there are some details, just to name a few. According to John Kessner, an associate professor for the College of Education and Human Development Department of Early Childhood and Elementary Education, teachers' images of themselves as educators, as well as their belief about their efficacy in the classroom and their expectation for students, also appear to influence the ways in which they interact with the students, as do their gender, experience, socioeconomic status, education, and ethnicity. So, let's talk about the impact of teachers' belief on his or her performance as a teacher. Teachers' belief directly affect how they act in the classroom, so in the teaching process. This can have positive and negative aspects. One positive aspect is that they have a greater choice of methodological strategies because each teacher has a different way to teach. For example, some of them believe that the best way of teaching is reading, other can think that listening to different songs is the best way, other may think that making oral presentation is the best option, and so on.
And then we have the negative aspects, of course, such as arguments between teachers and students because of different opinions that most of the time they discover in classes, or the teacher guide the whole teaching process based on what he or she believes and not in the needs of the students.
In this particular case, we found a very important negative aspect that totally upset the teaching learning process. Mr. Zapata, despite being an English teacher, bases his teaching on the idea that the social cultural development of the English language is not important for students. However, he makes a huge mistake by assuming that that is the real situation. Besides, he points out that students do not know what is going on in their country, but these are just teachers' assumptions.
As a result, he's influencing the teaching process based on what he believes. However, if he faces a difficult educational context with family, social, cultural, moral, and economic issues, the teacher must be the person who tries his best for trying to convey as much information to their students, finding the best way to do it. The teacher cannot forget that he's treating 43 students who have different skills, different ways of thinking, different realities, and knowledge, among others.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.